post-trade deadline edition of In Goal Radio, the podcast, presented by The Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. Looking forward to this one as a couple of pieces moved and a couple of pieces stayed nicely put. Darren Millard, along with the co-founders of In Goal Magazine, David Hutchison and Kevin Woodley. We'll get into it, plus a feature interview with one of the rising stars in the goaltending world right now on North America, a player that has experienced it all from major, junior, Canadian college, the ECHL, the American Hockey League, and for a little taste, the National Hockey League. It's been a meteoric rise for Logan Thompson. If you don't know that name, by the looks of his career path right now, you will very soon. We'll chat with Logan Thompson, who's got one of the coolest setups, too, around the American Hockey League. So let's get into, we'll save that in just a little bit. That's brought to you by Sensorina VR. Looking forward to catching up with the Southpaw in just a little bit. But guys, the trade deadline is in the rearview mirror. We have one significant trade, Devan Dubnyk going to the Colorado Avalanche. David Rittich also moved from the Calgary Flames over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, but that was it on the goaltending front. Woody, were you surprised that only two pieces moved and players like what Carolina had to offer, Detroit, Buffalo, were not shipped out?
Well, I mean, for different reasons, yes and no. I guess not. Jonathan Bernier not moving from Detroit is a little bit surprising just because he's headed towards unrestricted free agency. You could argue the same of Linus Ullmark, who we kind of pushed as probably the best goalie available amongst the list of goalies who were going to be unrestricted free agents this summer. But when you hear the reason he didn't get moved, and that is that Buffalo really wants to try and re-sign him, they worked towards a contract right up until the deadline, decided, hey, we couldn't get it done, but we still want to try. Like, that to me is a justifiable reason because frankly, the Sabres with Linus Ullmark and without Linus Ullmark are like he's been the difference. There's a reason they're winning again right now. Part of it is, hey, they're started to finally recover from their COVID outbreak, but also Linus Ullmark being healthy and playing well is a big part of it. So not surprised there. Bernier not moving, maybe a little bit surprising. Florida, Chris Driedger, some people have pointed to him. Why are you moving him if you're the Panthers and you have aspirations yourself? The rest kind of, didn't really surprise me. I thought Bernier to Colorado instead of Dubnyk might have been a fit we would see because familiarity matters and Jonathan has some familiarity with the goalie coach, the system, and the staff there. But they went with Dubnyk instead and David Rittich to Toronto. Is that a surprise? I don't know. Calgary Flames are all of a sudden think they might be in a playoff race and they're going to have to ride Jacob Markstrom right into the ground. But, if you're the Leafs, I think David Rittich is a guy that a lot of teams are going to be looking at. Matter of fact, I know a lot of teams are already starting to do diligence on in terms of can he be a bargain signing this summer? And if you're the Leafs and Freddie Anderson appears to be on his way out as an unrestricted free agent, you got Jack Campbell on a bargain contract, you could be looking at an audition here. Despite the fact he's technically third on the depth chart once Anderson's healthy, you could be looking at an audition here for David Rittich for a contract next year with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And that's a smart play as well to sort of get to know a potential asset.
The only thing I was a little puzzled with or concerned with was the third round pick for Rittich and how much he's going to play. But that's on the other side. They put him right in and he played a couple of games. So they're trying to get some value out of it and see what they have there and using him to their advantage in the sense of spelling off what they have in their stable right now. So positive. We also get to see the pad skins and then the skin like all that. So that's Bobby Hastings and the crew there with the Toronto Maple Leafs do a great job. What about Devan Dubnyk in Colorado? He's not only
let's just let me pause one because I think Rittich actually might be a fit there beyond just a relief valve. When I look at the types of chances that they give up in terms of the Leafs are a really good defensive team. There are a couple of areas where they rank lower in the league in terms of the types of chances they give up. And those are broken plays and sort of deflections. And when I look at David Rittich's numbers, broken plays especially, like that's where he's at another level. Like Big Save Dave is a nickname that actually fits statistically.
Really?
And when you look at the types of chances, he's been really good on tough chances, high percentage chances, and including a lot of broken plays. And it's a number where they give up a lot, they haven't had a lot of success. Their goaltenders haven't been great against them. They're running negative numbers. And he comes in there and he's really good on those types of chances. So there may be more there in terms of a fit. And depending on the health of the other two guys, and it's a question mark for both of them. I know he comes in as an insurance policy, Darren, but I could see David Rittich being a bigger part of this conversation by the time the playoffs start.
If it ends up being a fact where he gets some time and plays or resigns, then I totally change my tune on that. Absolutely change my tune on that. What about Devan Dubnyk in Colorado? Because now it sounds like he's going to get a lot more reps in the net with Philip Grubauer out because of COVID-19.
Well, kind of in a way, a perfect situation. Not for Philip Grubauer to miss time, but for Philip Grubauer as a guy that has been ridden too hard, frankly, right? There's a reason they went out and got Dubnyk and Johansson before that from Buffalo, a guy who, somebody a reporter in Buffalo said couldn't stop a puck in practice games or anything, and now he's got a shutout under his belt with the Colorado Avalanche. So clearly he didn't forget how to play goal. They needed that depth because obviously Pavel Francouz is having the hip surgery, out for the season. You needed a backup option. Well, now you've sort of got forced rest for Philip Grubauer. Has to take 2 weeks off. And you don't have to worry about, when should we start him? How do we manage his workload? Like, he's got 2 weeks off right now. And Devan Dubnyk is the guy. So you don't have a choice. You're just going to have to sort of adapt. Like, you could actually argue, and Dubnyk's a guy who did this when he went from Arizona to Minnesota back in 2015, just went in there and ran with it. And so it's a good opportunity. It kind of in some ways takes a little bit of stress or pressure off. Like, I got to play good, or they might not trust me to play good in a couple days from now, or I might get less starts down the stretch. I'm the guy for the next 2 weeks. Just go out there and play the game. And, in terms of the fit, surprisingly, one of the areas that Devin struggled this year is screens and deflections and how he manages those things. Well, guess what? In screens and deflections, the Colorado Avalanche give up the fewest deflection opportunities in the league. And in screens, they give up the third fewest. So again, when you look at the style and system of play and the fit, like, Colorado is actually an exceptional defensive team. The only two things they give up a lot of and for them, a lot is relative. The only two things they're even middle of the pack in terms of scoring chances against: breakaways and broken plays. Devan Dubnyk on breakaways is well above expected. You got to love the poke check from Devan Dubnyk. Breakaways, baby. And guess what? The only other number that Devan in a tough season this year is above expected: broken plays. So again, like, we talk about horses for courses and goalies and styles fitting systems in both Rittich and Dubnyk. I'm not saying it's going to happen because there's adjustments and everybody plays them differently, but at least statistically, there's a fit there. And so now you've got Dubnyk with 2 weeks to sort of get his feet under him and get comfortable behind that team. I'm interested to see how it goes. It's a great opportunity for him behind a team that, looks like an absolute wagon and should have a chance to win a cup. And let's see what the next 2 weeks bring. It could be a really important 2 weeks in terms of solidifying that tandem. Grubauer's the guy going in, but man, having a plan B for a team that needed plan C last year, and a plan B they built some trust in, could be a real positive.
In Goal Radio, the podcast presented by the Hockey Shop, source for sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com. When you bring up Rittich and Dubnyk and those numbers and the fit, tell me how deep teams go in the analytics side of it and trying to match up a goaltender in making a decision on who to acquire and who not to acquire.
I would say that I can't honestly answer it because most teams aren't going to tell you first and foremost how deeply they go. I do know that some teams do look at it to the level we just talked about, and in fact, much deeper. We did this last year, and we talked about this last year around unrestricted free agency. You can actually plug goalie A into Team X and see what's going to happen. Is how does his success against these types of chances fit the types of chances they give up? And with ClearSight Analytics, you can go into over 30 different types of scoring chances and sort of weigh those things. At the end of the day, even with that much depth and breaking down types of chances, there's still differences, right? There's still differences in the types of 2-on-1s, the types of odd man rushes, how they defend them. There's still uncertainty there. I do know some teams that use this program in that fashion absolutely deep dive into it. I can't say which ones because I'd probably get myself in a lot of trouble. I would expect the Toronto Maple Leafs as a team that might not be using this program or this anymore. I'm not sure they're a ClearSight client anymore. Frankly, don't know anymore. But given the depth of their analytics department, I would think they weigh things at that type of, deep dive level for sure before making a move like that.
Let's bring in Hutch. Was there a move, whether it's the Riddick, whether it's the Dubnyk, or a team that stands pat like Carolina with both of its veteran goaltenders? Florida Panthers decide to keep Chris Driedger, which no brainer to a lot of people in the hockey world, but he's still unrestricted free agent. So anything jump out at you on trade deadline?
Maybe Carolina jumped out at me because I think they've got 3 goaltenders they're really confident with right now, and would have been a good opportunity to make a move there. But was there a fit with the market? Was there somebody willing to pay a price that they thought was relevant at this point? Of course, we'll never know. But I did expect somebody to go there. Florida, I agree with you. Complete no-brainer, Darren. They're in a go-for-it mode right now, and you need to have 2 goaltenders, and Driedger arguably the best one of the bunch right now. So why would you move him, even if you are trying to recover some of an asset there? And I've been sort of surprised by some of the hype in the industry of people talking about, well, they've signed Spencer Knight, they've got their backup, but wouldn't that just be crazy to take a kid straight out of college and sit him on the bench in the National Hockey League to not play any games? We've spoken here many times before about how important it is for a young goaltender to get games, and that development's only going to come along if he's on the ice playing. And so I would be shocked if he suddenly became their backup next season. But of course, my predictions here are virtually always wrong. So maybe you can just put it in the book that Spencer Knight will be the backup in Florida next year.
Wrong predictions by David Hutchison on In Goal Radio, the podcast. It sounds like a segment that we can bring into. Just throw it in at the end, or maybe give you some real cachet right off the top.
Well, we could just hook up with one of these online betting companies that seems to sponsor every podcast in the book, and then people can just listen to whatever I say, go bet the opposite, and they're almost guaranteed to make some money.
Woody, you've never been wrong before.
No, that's why they call me the donator in all my long-standing hockey and football pools.
Every pool needs one of those. What's happening at the Hockey Shop? Source for Sports Surrey, thehockeyshop.com.
Well, not a gear segment this week, and not a whole lot. And then just as a quick, by way of explanation, we up here in BC are running pretty hot on the COVID scale. And we're also running pretty hot on the precaution scale, both not just in terms of the standards set by our government, but at places like the Hockey Shop, where they've got masks for you when you walk in the door. The staff is wearing them to make you comfortable. They've done a really good job of sort of making sure you can pre-book fitting appointments with Cam. Make sure that you're safe and comfortable. And so they had a couple of exposures come into the store that they were made aware of, and they had to shut it down, or they chose to shut it down to make sure that things were safe before you go back in there. You can still shop online. They do have a second warehouse where they ship out of. Not all items are available out of there. So you can still call Cam and talk to him and get a feel for, what he can help you with right now. They do expect to be open in a matter of days. So for some of you, by the time you listen to this podcast, they'll be back open. But as we would expect from a shop like the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports, they are not going to do anything that puts anybody at risk. Safety first. So if you've got questions, if you want to check them out online, it's obviously thehockeyshop.com. Email is sales@thehockeyshop.com. Or if you want to give them a call, 604-589-8299 is a local number. And the 1-800 internationally, yes, Cam, I can remember this. I don't need a cue card. It is 1-800-567-7790. As I said, things are a little slow right there right now. If you've got a need right now, desperation, hit them up, see if it's something they have access to in the warehouse or something you'll have to wait for the store to actually open on. They're not going to do anything that puts anyone at risk, both themselves or their staff or you as a customer. And so that means we're on hold right now. We'll hopefully be back with a gear segment in the coming weeks, and hopefully they'll be open in the coming days. But for now, reach out to them if you've got a question, and they'll take care of you as they always do at the Hockey Shop, Source for Sports.
Hockeyshop.com is where I go. Sales@thehockeyshop.com if you want to email them. And the numbers we've given you numerous times, those numbers also available on the website at thehockeyshop.com. Check them out. You can still be perusing, shopping, and if you have any questions, send them a note and they will get back to you. But just safety first and foremost. And like Woody said, by the time some of you listen to this, they will be up and running. Wish everybody safety and healthiness with the Hockey Shop and thehockeyshop.com. The feature interview this week, brought to you by Sense Arena VR, is Logan Thompson, who is a second-year pro who's already had a couple of minutes in the National Hockey League. And a couple of minutes means a couple of minutes, but he's just burst onto the scene in the American Hockey League, playing with the Henderson Silver Knights, the affiliate of the Vegas Golden Knights. And it's just an incredible story, a rare story coming from Canadian college. We'll get into Logan in just a little bit as we caught up with him from Henderson, Nevada, earlier this week. But Sense Arena VR continues to present our feature interviews, Hutch.
Sure do. And we're really thankful for Sense Arena, both for their sponsorship of the podcast and for the fantastic product that they've created for all goaltenders. And, this time of year is a great time to get involved with Sense Arena, because so many of us are stepping, those who were lucky enough to be on the ice are now sort of stepping back as the spring comes upon us and evaluating new ways to prepare for the upcoming season. And when you're not able to get to the rink, Sense Arena is a fantastic way for you to get on the virtual ice and practice. And it's an opportunity, as we've heard from many pros, to get into a very realistic scenario where you can be tracking pucks, reading shots, reading releases, working on your footwork, working on your hands, and really developing your goaltending skills at a time when you can't get on the ice. Of course, when the season happens, we've already seen that it's an incredible tool for getting ready for that day's on-ice session in terms of warming up the brain, warming up the eyes. But right now, for those people who aren't on the ice, Sense Arena is a great way. Every single day, you can be getting on the virtual ice and working on your skills and becoming a better goaltender. And where you'll be when the next season comes, I think will shock you as a result of this groundbreaking new product.
I'm going to admit I got a new glove, and it is awesome. The Axis glove from CCM, and just being able to use it with Sense Arena VR and just to get comfortable with it is another real aid to it. Sense Arena VR, just the layers of, instead of just sitting there watching TV, which I do anyway, but use Sense Arena VR with the new glove and get that comfortability and to get used to it is a different method to use Sense Arena VR as well.
I will use this opportunity to tease next week's guest as well. Brian DeCord of the Arizona Coyotes, Director of Goaltending Operations, will join us. And he actually had a couple of uses and ways that Sense Arena benefits goaltenders that, frankly, I'd never even thought of. And they were brilliant. And I can't wait till we get a chance to share that in next week's feature interview with Brian DeCord.
Do you guys, what about using putting on pads, just not the whole setup, but just putting on the pads and getting a little bit more realistic with your VR? I like it.
Haven't really done it, to be honest, but have always been intrigued by the idea. I would love to have one of those indoor setups where you've got the plastic ice and you can get the full gear on and be working through full movements, because obviously you're not getting a whole lot of shots at home. And I find whenever I see people working on the plastic ice, I mean the people that have set it up in their garage, it's great that you can do some crease movements and so on, but I think that opportunity to combine Sense Arena with some indoor work on the plastic ice would just be a great tool. Would love to see how that goes.
Outstanding. Sense Arena VR, check them out. It's a way to keep in touch with the game when you're not on the ice and work on your hand-eye, your puck tracking, so many uses. And if you want to turn it up to the highest level and just have pucks whizzing at you 1,000 miles an hour, it's the cheat code, as David Hutchison has said numerous times. Logan Thompson is our feature interview presented by Sense Arena VR. And if you can, just a little Cole's Notes tee up here, Woody, on what you know of Logan Thompson, maybe what you knew of Logan Thompson at the start of this season, and what you know now, because that's even from your background, it's interesting.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I didn't know much going into this season. Obviously, the radar goes up a little bit when you have a CIS signing, get an opportunity, because I've said for years that I think there's goaltenders in the CIS that probably warrant that opportunity at a time when teams will scour the NCAA for undrafted free agents. I think there's a few more like this. We saw Zach Sawchenko sign a contract with the San Jose Sharks this week as well. Another guy who I thought should have been drafted, didn't get drafted, goes to CIS, and now looks like he's going to be a good pro. So I think there's more guys like that. To be honest, though, beyond that, I didn't know a ton, and that's why I enjoyed this interview so much. I felt like I really got to know more about Logan, his path, and some of the reasons you can see that he's having success. And I mean, he's having a lot of success this year. And talking to people around the American Hockey League a little bit in the past couple of days since the interview, that success is largely on him. The Vegas Silver Knights, the Henderson Silver Knights, sorry, Darren, in your backyard, not that they're a bad team, but they give up a lot. And Logan has been like the rock back there that sort of anchors this team's success this season.
They are a great team out and leading the Pacific Division of the American Hockey League, but Logan Thompson is a big part of that. At 13-3 and faces over 30 shots on a regular occurrence, over 40 shots a few times. 13-3 with save percentage and goals against average that will just knock your socks off. And he's a southpaw, spent 4 years playing Major Junior, and then went to the CIS because he made that decision due to where his radar was taking him when it came to professional offers. It's a really interesting story. Perseverance, yeah, a little bit, but then you look at it from a meteoric rise in and through the pro ranks. Second full pro season, and he's already had a little taste in the National Hockey League. It's Logan Thompson, our feature interview presented by Sense Arena VR on In Goal Radio, the podcast. Let's start now and work our way back a little bit because it is a fascinating story and it's an amazing story of dedication. And you had a wonderful Western Hockey League career that I want to get into as well. But your performance in the American Hockey League this year, are you somewhat surprised, or how would you describe it?
I mean, I always feel like I believed in like myself that I could be a top goalie in every league that I played in. I mean, obviously, I don't like to look at my numbers. I'm obviously happy that we're winning. But yeah, I mean, obviously I'm just happy. Like, obviously it's surprising. I'm surprised that I'm just getting as much playing time that I am. Obviously coming here, I knew Oscar was going to be here. So I was looking forward to learning from him, and the whole COVID world kind of gave me that opportunity to play more games than kind of I thought. And then I'm just kind of been happy and thankful for the opportunities of playing hockey and just getting a lot of minutes.
How has your game changed in the last 3 years when you went from Major Junior, Canadian College, ECHL, and now to the top of the American Hockey League?
I think it's just, like a quote that's always kind of like stuck with me was just like, it's a sprint. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon, right? So, they always say that, goalies develop late, and obviously I was, a little immature, and my game wasn't as controlled as it is now. And I think the biggest thing was just growing up and getting older and learning how to, control my body and knowing what I can and can't do, and just being more in control of things on and off the ice, and just being more of a pro and the maturity level, and just coming to the rink, putting in 2 hours of work every day isn't that hard, and just dedicating myself every day for that, 3 hours of hard work. And I think that's kind of just how I've kind of turned my game around.
When you say, I'm curious, because remember, you're speaking to a goalie or an audience that's 100% goaltenders. When you talk about controlling your game and controlling your body, can you give us some examples of things maybe you used to do before that you've learned not to do now, or that you're doing differently now? And were there guys that sort of helped turn that light switch on for you at various points?
I think when I was in junior, I've always been an athletic and pretty quick goalie, and like to play that way. But I would just get myself so scrambly and trying to almost do too much. And watching here in Vegas, you have Flower and Leonard, so you can kind of learn from watching Flower to be athletic, but then Leonard also plays the percentage game really well, and that's kind of something that I, wanted to get more in my game. Is I can make those big saves, but I should also, there's times when I can just relax it and play the percentage and just let it hit me, opposed to trying to do too much.
Who's the biggest influence on your game?
On my game, it's tough. Like, I've had a lot of people, and a lot of goalies I've looked up to. I mean, growing up, I always watch Kippersoff and just trying to be cool like a cucumber, and watching he'd get scored on and there'd be bad days. You're a goalie, nothing's going to go right, but just staying calm and relaxed. And that's his mental side was just kind of something that caught my eye early at a young age. And I try not to get too hot headed, especially in games, and let people show that. And obviously I know another one here in Vegas is Flower. Like he's, 37 years old, but the guy's a workhorse, and he's acts like he's playing like he's 20 years old, and just continuing to work hard and continue to push yourself. The guy's never kind of happy; he always wants more, and that's something that you can learn from him for sure.
Can you compare the start of your junior career to the start of your professional career and the feelings and the development? Is there any synergy there at all, or am I overthinking it?
I think it's just like I was a kid, right? When I started my junior career, I was 15, 16, and I think that my mindset, I was so focused on trying to get drafted and worrying about numbers. And I think that's also what a lot of people focus on. I got to get drafted. I got to have good numbers. And then that's when mistakes happen. Now it's, I come to the rink and obviously I want to play well, but there's so many other things that I can't control, right? I'm just going to try to focus on what I can do and not worry about the numbers, not worry about a contract next year or in 2 years. Like just play hockey and hopefully good things happen. I just kind of feel like there's a lot of things that are out of your control and you just got to play hockey.
How'd you come to that, right? Because that's like, we hear that a lot in terms of not worrying about the guys in the stands watching you when you're in a draft year, whether it's going into the bantam draft or whatever level. How do you sort of? It's easy. It's one of those things that's really easy to say, but sometimes it's hard to do as a goaltender. Is it just experience, maturity, like you said, or were there moments or realizations along the way that helped you sort of come to understand how to do it, not just say it?
Yeah, my whole career, like bantam, I remember I wanted to be drafted so bad, and every team said it, or all those sites would say, "Oh, he's not getting drafted," this and that, and I got drafted, which I was surprised, and then obviously the NHL missing the draft there, and I think to realize that I could stop worrying about that stuff is when I went to CIS and just started playing hockey for fun and fell in love with the game again. I think I almost took it for granted playing junior hockey and how much fun it is, because all I wanted to do was play pro hockey and was so concerned about all the scouts, opposed to just having fun playing hockey. And I think it changed for me when all these teams told me I wasn't good enough. So I kind of just said, F you guys, I'm going to play hockey. And if things work out in my favor, then they do. And I'm not going to focus on it. And that's when I felt when teams kind of started to approach me, was when I kind of turned off that want to do and just play hockey.
When you came to that realization and you went to Brock, was that late in the summer where you didn't have the opportunity to turn pro, or was that sort of coming off your year in Brandon, your last year Brandon, and you decided, I'm going to school?
Well, yeah, no. So what happened was I signed a PTO early, my 20-year-old year before the season ended with Washington. And so I kind of locked myself up with them on a PTO. And then they signed Samsonov about a couple weeks later, which gave them 6 goalies in their depth chart. And they still wanted me to come to camp, but that's kind of when I realized like there's just no more room like for me in this organization. I tried getting coast contracts. No teams really, I tried, I think, getting with the Rapid City Rush. They weren't interested. So I was like, well, no room in Washington, no room in the coast. And, Brock was they were really good. They was like, we're here if you want, but they understood I wanted to go pro. But that's kind of really why I wanted to go to Brock, because they were so understanding that, the pro game was there, but they had my back and they gave me a place to play in a home. So I was really thankful for that.
Okay. Why Brock? Take me in there, because you're a Western guy, and in the Ontario loop, there's a couple of other schools that are a little high profile, but tell me about Brock. I've always wanted to know that answer.
I didn't want to be the guy that just wanted to go to a team like a U of A or one of those big teams and just be on a powerhouse. I wanted to go to a team where I can go in right away and start playing games, because that's all I really cared about, was just playing games. I didn't want to sit on a bench for 2 years and then finally, get that starting job. So I was talking to Marty Williamson, the Brock head coach. He was like, yeah, we'll give you games if you come in here. And that's kind of all I wanted, was just, and it's a change of scenery, right? I've been around the Western League for 4 years. So, Brock's close to Niagara Falls and it's a whole new kind of area for me. So I loved it. Just new city, new people, new school. I've never been to Ontario before. So no, I loved it. And it was just a whole, like I said, I fell in love with the game again, and it just helped me change the scenery and change perspective on everything.
What were the falls like? I remember my first time going there. I was like, wow, I'm actually, as a Western guy, I'm actually at Niagara Falls. This is freaking cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like it's definitely something you got to check out. Like you always see pictures and you're like, yeah, cool. But when you go there and see it for the first time, and even like that whole area, just stuff to do, like it's really fun. Like I loved it there, and there's nice restaurant spots and lunch and dinner. So no, yeah, I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it, and I think I spent New Year's down there one year, or New Year's down there. So it was a good time. Like just a lot of fun.
You've kind of said a couple times, fell back in love with the game at Brock. Was there any point like along the path to there where you realized you'd lost that? Or was it not until you got the opportunity that you realized it was missing? And would there be advice to young kids that you would give about, recognizing those signs or finding a way to keep it enjoyable?
Yeah, I think when I say I fell in love with the game again, I think it's just like because I wanted to go pro so bad, and I just felt like my whole life was I wanted to be in the NHL. I wanted to be a pro goalie. And then when that kind of every team told me that wasn't good enough, I feel like that's kind of where I was just like, what am I going to do now? Like, it's over. And a little like a pity party for myself, of course. Like, I mean, like as I think a lot of people do, like 'cause every kid does want to go pro, but then, like I said, you still get to go to school for four free years with your scholarship, and you get to continue playing hockey for 4 more years. And I think that's just where we had such a good group of guys, and I was just having fun. There's not many fans in CIS hockey. There's not many scouts sitting up there, so you're just playing hockey, and it was just a lot of fun.
You were ready for the COVID environment.
Yeah, like our opening game in Henderson, I'm like, this is normal. Like I'm used to this.
Is there a lesson there in letting go though? Because it sounds like all the way up, all you thought about was the next step and making it and scouts and all those external factors. And it wasn't until you let go of those expectations or desires that you got back to this point. Is that an oversimplification on my part? Because it's kind of what I'm hearing a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Like, and that's kind of when I come back to the point of just being like, there's so many things you can't control. Like, there's some goalies that may have worse numbers than you, but they're going to get drafted to the NHL. They're going to get that NHL contract. You might have better numbers than all of them, and you'll never get interest. Like, it's just, there's so many factors, so many things that you just, I don't think if I could tell, 16-year-old me that just shut up and play and enjoy the brand in Manitoba and just have fun and make some memories, because that's what I should have done.
I'm going to hop off because I've got some other duties to do, but Woody's going to take you home the rest of the way. We've never done one of these split up interviews before, but before I do, you mentioned Brandon. My dad still lives there. He asked me every week, like if we take weather and the Wheat Kings away from my dad, he doesn't have anything to talk about. But he asked me every week, how's my Brandon goalie doing? And so there's still people there following you, Logan. And from me to you, congratulations. And I can't wait to hear the answer about your NHL debut, which will be later in the interview. But thanks for doing this, and enjoy the rest of Woody. If he says one more question, know that there's two coming. That's my only advice.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Jared.
A different format here on the In Goal Radio podcast this week. We juggle sometimes. What can I say? This is COVID. This is the new world. So there are so many different strings that I already want to pull on after hearing this part of the conversation. We've been a little bit all over the map, but let's just take a step back here. Where'd you get started? How'd you get started in goal? First experiences, what made you love it? Or was it a love at first sight kind of experience? And who were your guys growing up early?
Yeah, I remember like just being a kid, and I was in a hockey store with my dad, and we were walking by and I saw the goalie pads, and I was like, oh, those are like awesome. Like, I want to be a goalie. Those pads are so cool. Like, forwards look so stupid. Like, I could have all that stuff. And I remember like I looked at these like nice white, blue and silver, like Brian's Beast gear. And I was like, this is going to be my first set. And like, eventually, like thankfully for my dad, he got me that set, and my next day I was on the ice at World Pro goaltending for my first time ever, skating in Calgary. And I just, like I said, fell in love with it. And I remember just putting on those beasts, and I was just like, yeah, like this is it for me. And I actually wasn't as bad for my first time, being there. I wasn't the best skater, so I was good at getting hit with pucks. So it luckily worked out, and my dad let me stick with it. So.
how old would he have been then? Because you mentioned Kiprusoff. I covered that Stanley Cup final in 2004 with Mika, and obviously David Marcoux was the goalie coach there. You would have been like, what? Trying to do the math here. You would have been 7 in 2004?
Yeah, I remember watching that Stanley Cup, and I was at my mom's house. I must have been 7 or 6. Like I wasn't supposed to be up. I was supposed to be in bed, but I was watching that final game on TV. Like I remember, yeah.
Before the pads, before the Brian's pads?
This would have been, yeah, for sure. Before the Brian pads, for sure.
And I interrupted there. You remember watching that series? And
yeah, no, I just remember like the Kiprusoff, like he had those Vaughns, and I was just like, this guy's like the man. And there was 2 goalies I grew up watching, and it was Kiprusoff and Turco. I just like loved Marty Turco, loved the way he like handled a puck. I just thought he was the man. And Kiprusoff's like his swagger. Like Calgary Flames were a good team, but I think the reason that they were so good was because of Kiprusoff, right? Like they haven't had Markstrom's obviously an elite goalie, but they haven't had a Kiprusoff since. So
yeah, kind of hard to duplicate a guy like Mika for sure. Now, the whole catching with the right hand thing, did that ever become a problem for you? Being a full right, was that ever an issue with equipment? Because we've had this conversation with different guys, including Mike McKenna in Vegas now on the broadcast side, about why do we not see more? And some of the challenges that guys face where Andrei Vasilevsky, for example, told us that he should be a full right goalie, but growing up in Russia, even with a dad who was a pro, he couldn't get a full right set. What was your experiences like on that side of things?
Well, I remember like I told my dad I want to catch my right. He kind of thought that was weird, and I catch with my right, but also I throw. Like my good throwing arm is my right hand, but when I write stuff, I'm left-handed, so I'm like kind of weird that way. So he was kind of thrown off by it too, but he's like, all right, if this is comfortable for you and you're sure, like go ahead. And then obviously, yeah, like the gears, I think even still today, you'll go to Hockey Life and all these goalie stores, and there isn't very much selection for right-handed stuff. So I remember we were just, my whole life as a kid, it's just, we're ordering gear. Like we'd look on the internet, he'd go through his couple sites and it'd just be ordering gear because we couldn't go to stores. Like it was pretty hard to find right-handed stuff and sticks too. Going to the goalie stick aisle, there's hardly any righties. It's disappointing because like that's kind of my breed, right? You'd like to see a little bit more love for us, but yeah, we're rare.
Well, which obviously probably makes it even more exciting that now you can get any gear you want as a pro. So do we have a Logan Thompson curve on a stick yet? Do you have your own model? Or are you still working towards that? We saw the new Bauer ultrasonic setup was sick in the silver.
Yeah, no, I wanted to do, like I said, I wanted to do all gold, but some guy stole my idea here in Vegas, so I had to go all silver. But yeah, there's no Thompson curve yet. I think I use a Crawford in the right, but maybe one day I can get my own curve.
You mentioned Flower and the gold pads. You talked about your experience being up with him. First of all, before we get to the game, what was that like being around him? And I guess I don't know how much Lehner was around given, the injuries, whether you got to see him, but was there anything that surprised you in terms of his habits and the way he handled himself?
It's crazy. Like I remember watching Flower in Pittsburgh and just never thinking how good he was. And just like, it's almost like I remember walking in the dressing room for the one day and just seeing him and not trying to be like a fan, being like, oh my God, that's Marc-Andre Fleury. Like, I had to like relax, say, all right, that's technically kind of my teammate. Like, don't be an idiot. Don't embarrass yourself. But he's like, everything you hear about the guy is totally true. He's the nicest guy, like treats everyone the same. Everyone loves him. He's, he still acts like a kid. He has fun. And like, that's kind of where, like, when I talk about having fun with the game, he doesn't care about money. Like he just loves playing hockey. He's a competitive guy and he has so much fun doing it. And that's like the one thing you can learn from him is just, he comes to the rink every day with a smile on his face. He puts in his work. He makes himself better every day, and he makes the team better every day too. And kind of makes the room that much closer. He's a captain without the C almost.
It's funny because we've written stories about that, about how, for him and his career, like even like what starting goalie plays last puck?
Yeah. Yeah.
But that matters, right? Like for him, having fun is a big part of it. And I think there's a lesson there. It sounds like that's rubbed off on you too.
Yeah, like and warm up with him, like, every goalie has their own routine. You try to stay out of the way when they're starting. You don't want to bug them. But like Flower, yeah, he like just loves being in that net. Warm up, game, practice, like he's just gonna sit there and he won't get out. Like I think in practice he takes 97% of the shots, right? Like he just loves being in the net.
Did it surprise you the first time you saw the goggles on before a game?
No, actually, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've never seen that before a game, for sure.
We'd heard about that, but we were sworn to secrecy. But then when he made it public that he uses the,
I don't know what they're called. I've seen them though. Yeah,
we thought that was interesting as a warm up technique. What was that experience like for you, being up there and then actually getting into a game, like especially to have gone from, like you said, almost giving up on it not that long ago to having it happen that fast?
I mean, signing my contract was like a dream come true. And then getting called up was obviously another exciting moment. But then when you walk into that dressing room and seeing that jersey like in your stall, like that's your jersey. It's hard to kind of explain the feeling, like especially when you see it for the first time, right? Like you've been wanting to put on that Vegas logo and you finally get to, and just even when you're going out there for warmups, it's just, and like looking across the ice. And my first game was San Jose and seeing like Martin Jones and all these big players, Carlson, like just like you're like holy crap, like these guys, you're all on TV and now I'm skating on the same ice as them. So it's very cool and it's exciting, and I just try to take it in. I mean, I'm going to take it in every day I can if I'm ever up there again, or if I'm ever not there again. It's just something that's going to live with me forever.
Getting into the game, I mean, I know it's in a relief appearance, but what's your mindset on the bench? You probably still want that first start where there's that build up and that type of moment. And maybe the silver lining here is it happens at a time when the parents can be there and we're back to, to fans and things like that. But what's the mindset when all of a sudden you go from being a part of that experience on the bench to I'm in?
Yeah, like I remember in Minnesota, like that game was so weird because like Flower was the only reason we were in that game. He was playing lights out. Like he was making big saves and doing just typical flurry stuff. And then I think it was like 1-1 or 2-1 going into the third, and they scored like 2 right away. I'm like 4-1, and I like kind of thought to myself, like, I wonder if they're gonna put me in. And then I see Krager kind of walk towards me in the tunnel, and then I just kind of wanted to look away. Like I didn't want to. Like, don't tell me I'm going in. Like the less is not what I want to do. Like I'm kind of crapping my pants there, but put me in, and it was like the feelings were so like mixed. You're excited, you're nervous, and you almost get a little teary eyed again because it's just like, again, this is like your childhood dream, and Parisi and all these guys are in front of me now. Like this is exciting. No fans, but it's still like your phone's blowing up after the game. All your friends watching that game, like seeing it. It's exciting. And yeah, I think it was a little bit of nerve, or 100%, nerves and emotions of excitement and just pretty emotional for sure.
Okay, so you mentioned that first sort of get your pads and get into the game, and you said World Pro. Who are some of the coaching influences? I mean, it's a long path. You get a lot of different voices over the years. What are some of the goalie coaches along the way that have helped you sort of become who you are in the net today?
Well, I think every goalie, as their dad's their best coach, right? They always, the goalie dads are pretty nutty. But my dad he wasn't a goalie, but he did all the research. So he thought he knew what I was doing wrong. So I think he'll get mad and ground me if I don't say he was the most influencer on my life. So definitely my dad's number one. But yeah, World Pro helped me when I was at a young age. And then from now, every time I'm in Calgary, I'm with, Evolution Goaltending with Justin Cardinal. He's known me since I was a kid, and he helps a lot of pros in the area, and he's definitely helped me with tracking and just being there. He's always had my back, and he's always pushed me, and he's always helped me take the next step. And then I mean, every goalie coach I've had, Tyler Plant and with the Wheat Kings, he was perfect for me. He just kind of retired, and a young guy, but a great goalie coach. But he's someone that I can relate with. I still talk to him twice a week. Today he's almost like a life coach for me now, just someone who's been through it. And now I can kind of, if I have issues, I kind of go to him and Luke Lobensinger and Brock and even Freddie here. And and a lot of credit goes to my two goalie coaches in Hershey with Alex Westy and Scotty Murray with the Capitals. They kind of were the only two that kind of believed in me when no one did, and they kind of saw if I had any potential and gave me a chance. So I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those two guys and what they did for me and how much they did work with me. Being a coast goalie, they still were talking to me and texting me every day. So a lot of credit goes out to those guys as well.
We're big fans. Obviously, you get to know everyone, and a lot of those names I've had a chance to meet, but sometimes you get them at a different level. And Scott Murray's a guy, and Alex too, that I've been blessed enough to sort of be on the ice up at times in Kelowna and actually watch them go to work. And so I'm not surprised to hear they had a positive influence even in a short time. CIS. Before we started recording, you and I were talking, like, this has been a bugaboo of mine for years. Like, all the NHL teams race to NCAA to find undrafted goalies to sign every year, it seems. And I've always wondered why there weren't more on the CIS. Like, do you think there's, like I said, with Zach Sawchenko just signed a contract with the San Jose Sharks. He'll be on their taxi squad the rest of the year, just yesterday. You think there's more out there? Like, do you think there's some guys that, there's some stones that need to be overturned and other guys that are maybe being missed?
Oh, like 100%. And I think when I tell players too, going, my advice is for guys leaving the Dub and going to CIS. Obviously, they're all disappointed they want to go pro, but I think that there's so many good players that have that potential that they don't need to go to those powerhouse schools. And I think that's where a lot of these really good players that put up those 100 points in the Dub, they go to these big names and then they kind of get buried and then forgotten about. I think these players should be going to just any school that's going to play them and just get noticed. I think the biggest thing is just go and play hockey, and all these good players are going to put up points. Doesn't matter what team you're on or not, they're going to find you. And I think that's what they need to do. Because I mean, the CIS, everyone knows about the youth, like the Bears, the Golden Bears, and UNB, right? They have probably everyone on that team can go pro, but I mean, Luke Phillips kind of the only one that did it. I think if each one of those guys was on a different team, I think you'd see a lot more guys getting contracts and deals.
Oh, that's an interesting thought that way. It's always amazed me that there's not more attention paid, because you obviously had to play at a certain level to get through, the WHL or any CHL teams, like, and have a career there. And sometimes, like I said, whether it's opportunity or, as you said, maturity and, experiences shaping you different ways, it just feels like there's some guys that maybe deserve a longer look there. You mentioned the year in South Carolina and with Alex Westland and Scotty Murray sort of having an eye on you in 1920. Any particulars there that you picked up from those two, that in terms of your game and that evolution, or any other, in between Brock in 28-19 and the last 2 years, what's been the biggest adjustment to pro in terms of your game and the shooters?
Well, I think when I first went to the coast, I just, coming from like CIS and junior, it's just like how much kind of grit, like guys are going to be in your face. There's big guys, they're in your face, they're screening you. Like they're men, they're not kids anymore, right? It's a lot harder hockey. It's faster. Everyone can shoot. I mean, the coast again is another league that's, no one wants to play. Like they talk about the coast, it's this and that, but there is still a lot of talent in the coast. Like there is a lot of talent, and the systems I would say aren't the greatest. It's a little more run and gun hockey, but everyone can score. And I think with Westy and Scotty, they really helped me just kind of gaining or get more control of my body and keeping, battling through screens, but just not, throwing myself outside of my posts and, keeping it contained and just that percentage stuff and just making everything simple, right? Not making it harder on myself. And that's what Scotty and Alex did with me the most. And video every day and every game, South Carolina with them, I think is kind of how I kept making progression throughout the year. In Charleston, you don't really have a goalie coach, so it's kind of up to you to put in that work. And my goalie partner, Parker Milner, who was an 8-year guy, he was perfect for me too. Really, taught me how to work hard and push myself. So a lot of credit goes to Millsy as well.
What about the year at Brock? Again, you talk about not having goalie, like different levels. You have different levels of support. I'm guessing Brock didn't have a dedicated goalie coach. How did you go about sort of, like you said, there was part of it was just the joy in playing, but how did you go about also maybe trying to develop, or was it just about the experience of playing?
Yeah, well, actually, we were pretty lucky at Brock that we had a goalie coach with Luke Lobsinger. So I was fortunate enough to get on the ice with him about 3 times a week. But Yeah, no, it was different going from junior to CIS. I thought CIS hockey was very systems and layer, like not as run and gun as junior. Everyone's obviously, you got guys that are 4 years older than you. So that group of guys that we had just really gelled well. We were good, like we got along great, and they just made my job a lot easier. I think that was my first real year, just having like a big, strong D-core that kind of just knew how to like box out and just play hockey, right? Everyone kind of did their job so well for CIS hockey that we were a good enough team, and just that was when I realized that, like, the higher up you get, it kind of gets a little easier because everyone's knows kind of what more, like, knows how to do their job.
I was going to ask you if it was in some ways, and it sometimes people think it's a silly question, but I was going to ask you if life was in some ways easier in the American League this year than it was in the East Coast last year, just because it's not so much, well, I guess the structure is one thing. There's more systems and structure, but there's less mistakes. Like the guys are where they're supposed to be. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think that's very fair. I mean, we do so much more video and system work and skills coaches, right? We got that here in Vegas with Henderson, that players are trying to make that next step. That the mistakes are more slim, and then as you go up to the NHL, like you can watch the NHL game and through 2 periods there's maybe 15, 14 shots on net, right? Six shots a period, and it's just because how good that everyone is at their job. The coast is obviously there's players in the coast that could play in the AHL 100%, but I think just without that system work, it's just a lot of 2-on-1s, more like breakaways, just kind of run and gun hockey, right?
Is it important as a goaltender to get involved in that video and that systems work? Like how much of your success can be attributed to understanding and being able to put those patterns you talked about together? Because, when we do a lot of our pro reads with NHL guys, it surprised me at first how much of it wasn't just reading out what the offensive player was doing, but knowing exactly where your defenseman or back checking forward was going to pressure him so that you could read a play off of that. Do you have to go to school on the systems as a goalie as well?
Yeah, and it's weird. Like I can't read a book to save my life, but I can read plays, and that's why I like doing like the video. I'll do video before a game, right? You want to know a team's power play, and then when you're in the crease, kind of ahead of time that they're going to go here. Your D man's going to step out here. That I just got to take away the short side. My D man's going to do his job. Like it just makes everyone's life kind of easier, right? And I think with Henderson, all the success we've had this year is just how much everyone on the team like kind of trusts each other. I trust my D core. They trust the forwards. That everyone kind of does their job, and it just it's a trickle down effect that's making everyone's lives so much easier.
Okay, so I also read a story too about when you were up, like having a little like swagger in practice. So does that matter? Like we talked about fun, like with Fleury and having fun, and I've watched him. I love when I hope we get back to the world where teams travel across the border, so I can watch Flower practice again, right? He has so much fun out there. And you talked about having that. Do you need to have a little swagger too? Like, and can you give a team confidence with that right amount of sort of, again, for lack of a better term, swagger?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if I would just call it like swagger. Obviously, I mean, I guess in some ways it is, but I think it just goes to show you, like, if a young player like me can kind of come up, and I like to think that I was obviously pretty shy, but if I can chirp, Ryan Reeves and Jonathan Marshall, so like it just shows you like how close and how fun it is to play when your team's winning and everyone's in a good mood and you're in a fun environment, that it just makes everyone's lives easier. I want to be on the ice, and you're going to get scored on in the NHL. So like I said, every time you can stop these guys and give it back to them, because they always like to hoot and holler. So, why can't I hoot and holler back at them, even though I'm a rookie and I've played 8 minutes in the NHL? But it's funny. Like it's just, I don't even know if it's swagger and me just being stupid, but I just like to have fun, and they just made it so much easier for me to go up there and play. Like I think a lot of people would be nervous and want to keep their mouth shut, but like I said, that group up there is a lot of fun, and you can see why they're winning is because everyone likes to be at the rink every day and be around each other.
Okay, so I know that because we were talking earlier before we hit record that you were up in the NHL with Vegas by the time Freddie got down to the AHL because he had some visa issues. But
Yeah.
You guys just getting started working together, so I'm gonna have to hold you to some Freddie Brathwaite stories after you have a little more time to get to know him.
For sure.
What's it?
For sure.
What's your advice though? Because you talked about all these different coaches that you've worked with. Would you have any advice for young goalies that end up with a lot of different voices, right? Because you probably had that, especially when you were, that one year you're in the coast and then a game up with the A, the first year out of Broxford at the end of the season, tryouts and things like that. You can end up getting in spots where the different goalie coach wants you to do something different. You want to make him happy, but you maybe think or don't think it's good for your game. Like, how do you manage all those different voices? How do you keep Freddie happy after being up and now you got to put up with him?
Yeah, the guy's the worst. No, it's interesting. Like, obviously, you're never going to agree with a coach or a goalie coach 100%. You're always going to think that there's something you could do different, and they're going to disagree or not. But I think the biggest thing is you just got to be, the coachable, right? Obviously, I think even though you may not think that one of their things is correct, you can still learn something from every different coach. And I think that out of, the 6 or 7 goalie coaches I've had, there's something I can learn from each of them, and I can throw it and interpret it into a way that makes me a better goalie in my own way. So if I don't like, the way that they want me to move, but I can like the way they want me to play on my post play. Like, you can just kind of steal a little bit of everyone's idea.
Well said. Well, listen, I know Darren warned you about last question, but just to spite him, I'm not going to have another one. Instead, we'll just hold you to another interview down the road as you continue to build on this pro career. Logan, thanks so much for taking the time, sharing some of the lessons you've learned along the way, the importance of having fun, and congratulations on, a pretty fast rise here from playing in the CIS to getting a taste of the NHL and having so much success in the American League. Thanks for sort of sharing this time with us and sharing the experiences.
Yeah, no, of course. Anytime. No, I love doing this stuff, so it's a lot of fun.
That is a name that you have to pay attention to. He's just broken through and made you have to pay attention to Logan Thompson, the Henderson Silver Knights, and again, for a few minutes, we actually thought he was going to get the start one day because Marc-Andre Fleury had a positive COVID test, ended up being a false positive, but up until like an hour before the game, the inclination was that Logan Thompson was going to get that first National Hockey League start, and Dylan Ferguson was going to be the backup if Marc-Andre Fleury wasn't available. In the end, Flower was the guy that went in and played that game. But Logan Thompson, CIS, Canadian University, Hutch, you've been banging that drum for a while.
Yeah, I sure have, because teams are really happy to head over to Europe and pick up a guy who's played a few years of pro over there, might be 23, 24, 25 years old, and he still gets a shot in the National Hockey League. And yet Canadian American kids get written off at such a young age. And why don't we see that CIS is just another stepping stone in the development path for kids? It is a step up from the CHL in many regards. Most of the players have graduated from the CHL, so these are men that are playing there. And it really is just another level of development. And I think we're going to see, as teams are looking for new players, new goaltenders, that the CIS, at least I hope, we're going to see that it plays a bigger role, because kids are coming out of there and they're having success. And, North American kids should get that opportunity to continue developing as well. Everybody's got a different development path, we say. So let's make that possible.
There's a lesson in there as well, in that conversation about where you play and deciding where you want to play. And I think it trickles down to minor hockey. When you parents and players are looking at options, Logan Thompson picked a program that wasn't one of the powerhouse programs, but because he wanted to play, and he wanted to face some shots, and it worked out for him. And that's not the traditional way that a lot of people think.
100%. And I think it was interesting that his take on it, not just for himself, but as he was recommending a program like that for other players, was that you will also get noticed. It's to just be another guy on a team is not enough. You've got to be that guy who stands out. And so if you go to a program where you're going to get more ice time, you're going to stand out a little bit more, you're going to get more opportunities and not sort of buried in a powerhouse program. But I agree, absolutely. You have to get that opportunity to play wherever you go. We've heard this many times. Don't go to the team, where you're going to win by taking 15 shots a night. Don't go to the team where you're going to be the backup. So many parents want their kids to jump up a level, jump up a level. How high a team can my kid play on? Maybe it's better to just play in a team where you can play a lot and get that opportunity to dominate, because kids move up all the time. Um, you don't have to play bantam as a peewee age kid. You can just play really well as a peewee age kid, and your time will come to shine in bantam, or whatever level we might be talking about. I think the lesson is there, and as Woody's pointed out as well, from some of the analytics we know that are being used in the National Hockey League, teams are seeing that there's a correlation between the number of games you play and your development path. You can't get around the fact that you have to play games. Goaltending is a game of patterns. We have to learn to recognize what's happening on the ice, and you're not going to do that sitting on the bench on a better team. And yes, it would be great to be practicing with some better players as a minor hockey kid. But you need that opportunity on the ice in games to experience the game, to learn to read what's happening in front of you. And so you got to play. So slightly different take perhaps than what Logan had for going to Brock University. But as you say, it does play out for kids of all ages.
Yeah, they do funnel together. Those two
Yep.
opinions, they do come together like a couple of rivers making one big flow. What's going on over at the website?
It's been a pretty busy week. Woody's been typing away like mad and producing all sorts of great content for us. Of course, we know that Marc-Andre Fleury in your neck of the woods came the fourth all-time in wins for the National Hockey League, as he got 485 this week. And so Kevin did a bit of a look back on some stuff we've done with Fleury about how fun matters for him in his game and on the ice, but then he tied it into some more recent stuff, including some stuff with this Logan Thompson interview as well. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Marc-Andre, you can head over to ingoalmag.com and check out that. We also had a look at David Riddick, and he's got a bit of a strange little warm-up routine. Darren, did you get a chance to look at that one?
I saw it on our Twitter account, the feed that came out on InGoal. I had no idea, and I wouldn't necessarily. Well, let's just say I need to trust somebody very, very much before I went down this path.
Yeah, I think you would. I've seen it done with pros using those soft orange pucks, just sort of as a fun, get the hands working. We've also heard about Kamloops Blazers coach Dan DePalma with all of his kids as sort of does headshots as a way of warming up those hands, and know the intention's not to hit them in the head, but to get the hands moving.
Yeah.
But David wanting to be hit in the head, I think, is a little bit different. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that and some of the coaches that he's worked with, including Kevin has already spoken to his new goaltending coach in Toronto, you can check out that little bit over at InGoal. And also another previous podcast guest out of the NCAA, Jeremy Swayman, who's had a fantastic start to his career in Boston. Kevin did a little bit of a look back with Jeremy and with Elfie Michaud, his coach from Maine, at some of the work that he was doing to learn to sort of contain his game a little bit more in the net, to learn how he can stay in the box, a little bit of a touch on box control there, and how that's helped his development. So some great video involved in that one, as we have with most of the articles you'll see from a teaching perspective over at InGoal. So really encourage folks to check out some of the new content over there. And if you're not following us on social or following the YouTube channel, we'd love for you to do that. And Darren, I'll just get a little plug in again. I really, we would appreciate any of our listeners take a second to get onto your podcast app right now and give the show a thumbs up for us. Or if you could take 15 seconds to write a little review to let people know why you're listening to InGoal Radio, we would really appreciate that. It helps us get the show to more people, helps us grow what we're doing, and is really inspiring to all of us. So thank you for everybody who does take a minute to do that.
It is a little thing, but it's a massive thing for InGoal Radio, the podcast, and InGoal Magazine. We can't overstate that. It does help out immensely when you go down that path. Jeremy Swayman, I watched him the other night against the Buffalo Sabres. He was fantastic in that shootout win, and I kept thinking, he was like Logan Thompson with Woody. didn't know a lot about him until he appeared on In Goal Radio, the podcast. And now I've fallen in love with his story, his dedication, his perseverance, what he puts into it and how much he gets out of it. And he's played in the National Hockey League and really helped out the Boston Bruins immensely.
Yeah, he sure has. I think we're so lucky to have so many of these guys come on the show with us. I mean, we love having the pros, having Carey Price sit down or Thatcher Demko or whoever to share their story is wonderful. But when these young up and coming pros take time to sit down, I think you get a bit of a different listen, don't you? They're a little bit more unfiltered, a little bit more open, a little bit more to share. Obviously their development is a little bit more recent too, so maybe they're a little bit more in touch with what they what they did to get to where they are now. And I think the lessons for some of the young goaltenders, some of the old goaltenders listening to the show, there's some great ones there from some of the young guys like Jeremy and Logan. So really thankful that they're able to join us, and look forward to bringing a lot more to the audience in the near future.
Can't wait for next week's episode already. All this conversation's got me pumped up. Thanks for joining us, for Hutch, for Woody. Really appreciate it. And for Logan Thompson, thank you for stopping by. Keep him on your radar as he forges his career. Again, 13-3 in his first year in the American Hockey League, goaltender of the month in the American Hockey League twice. And he's on his way to being named best goaltender in this truncated season. Knight in shining armor. We can't promise it every week, but we do have a silver knight in this week's episode of In Goal Radio, the podcast.